Hey all, today we're going to do a quick walk around in my 1966 Ford Mustang and talk about all the features and get to know it a little bit better. Let's get into it. Still working on that new intro. Anyway, if you like this content, like, sub, shares, all that good stuff, it really helps the channel grow. I know it's a brand new channel, so all that support is really helpful. Today, what I want to talk about is I'm basically going to start from the front of the car to the back of the car, and I'm going to go over the features of my 1966 Ford Mustang. Now, it's not necessarily, this isn't going to be the like textbook example of a perfect, pristine 66 Mustang. My car has character to it. It's got, different things that make it different from when it rolled off the factory, and some of the things that are like how it rolled right off the factory. So I'm going to talk about them and just kind of do a brief overview. And then in the future, what I'm going to do is kind of a video talking about the issues and upgrades that are going to be addressed, hopefully, as we go through the car. So I'll start with a brief overview of the car. So this is a 1966 Ford Mustang Coupe with a factory 289. That actually has a couple features on it that are pretty rare that we'll get into when I get into the engine bay. Now, right now, this is in what I can only guess is called Tahoe Turquoise, which is a factory color for the 66 Mustang. But according to the build plate, this car was originally an ivy green, which is a really nice dark metallic green. But right now, again, we believe that the car is in Tahoe Turquoise, and it's a pretty nice color. So pretty much, we're going to move to the front of the car and get started. Starting out up front, because it's a car from the 60s, you get a good bit of chrome. Not as much chrome as a car from the 50s, but it's still definitely there. And the chrome on this car is in pretty nice shape. There's a couple spots where the chrome has started to flake off, and that's something we might redo or replace in the future, but for now it definitely looks good enough. The grill's in pretty nice shape, so is the corral with the pony. Definitely looks pretty good. The paint on this car is actually in pretty nice shape. Now there's definitely a few spots where it's starting to show age, it's got some issues, and I think we're going to address them in the future. And again, I'm going to do a much more in-depth video into what we're going to change and adjust and upgrade on this car, but for now I'm just doing an overview. Right, you've got factory headlights, right? No fog lights. I think that was primarily a GT option, but this car is not a GT, but it is a 289. So you do have just standard headlights, and then of course you've got your turn signals down below. You also notice a little bit of cardboard. This car does have a leaking issue that I will get more in depth into in another video. Moving up the hood, right, you'll notice here, for the keen-eyed viewer, you will notice that that is not the correct antenna. So this, I believe, is off of a Ford Falcon, right? Something to be addressed later, but for now it works. This car has got all the really nice 289 badging it should on both sides, which is really nice. The kind of cool thing about these Mustangs is it's not slammed with the word Ford all over. In fact, there's only a few spots on the car, at least on the outside of the car, that you see Ford. One of them, of course, being along the front of the hood. So pretty cool that it's more Mustang oriented than Ford oriented. Coming down here, you've got a Mustang logo on each side with the word Mustang and then the pony. Pretty cool to see them on both sides. Coming down to the wheels, so this has a set of aftermarket Scott Drake wheels on it. Now, best I can tell, this is basically meant to mimic, if not direct copy, the late 60s style rim that was put on the Mustangs. So not quite appropriate for this era, but still looks pretty good. Moving back a little bit, you'll notice this car has a vinyl top on it. The vinyl top is in pretty good shape. We don't know yet if this was factory. Obviously, this top is not the original. It would have been redone by now for how good it looks, but it kind of gives the car a unique look, and you don't see vinyl tops as much anymore. Moving along the side here, you have the fake, not really a vent, looks like a vent that's kind of neat in chrome. That would, of course, if it was real, would be to cool the brakes, but, nice touch of styling for the 60s. Coming to the back here, you've got the trunk, and it's definitely a spot where the fitment isn't the best, but something to keep in mind is some of these older cars, the fitment wasn't the best out of the factory, so while I definitely think this could use some attention, it's not as big a deal as you would expect. Looking in the back windshield, there's a spot for a speaker that is long gone. We've actually got a pile of parts, which I'll address in a little bit and talk about, but one of them is the speaker that should be right there, or at least what's left of it. Coming to the back of the car, and I apologize, the angle's not the best, but there's not a whole lot to talk about back here. You have dual exhaust, which you can't really see, but because it's a non-GT car, it just has a standard bumper, so the exhaust tips weren't chromed or anything, as far as I know. At least these aren't. And then you've got your gas cap on the back, which is a nice touch, and ours is missing the little wires, so that's something that I'm going to look into acquiring. Something in the back that is worth talking about is the iconic taillights. As far as I can tell, Ford has pretty much kept that almost through the entire production run of the car. They've always done some iteration of the tri taillight. So definitely pretty cool. These are in pretty good shape. I think there's some backup lights down here that are missing a couple screws that we'll have to address, but overall in pretty good shape back here. All right, time to get on the inside of the car. So I'm going to start by lifting the hood, and it's got the little latch here on the bottom. One of the things that's nice about these older style cars is there's not as many like steps to get into them. So for instance, with a modern car where you might have to go and raise up the hood by pulling a latch inside of the car and then coming around, this you can just pop the hood and it opens. So getting to the inside of the engine bay, there's definitely some things that have been replaced over the years. Now, we don't have a great idea of the history of this car. The person that we bought it from, they just weren't that knowledgeable, and we've actually in the process of trying to reach out to a previous owner, but so far it's not the best success. So we're kind of winging it, but you can tell a lot just by looking. So looks like someone replaced the original valve covers with chrome valve covers. They updated to a 4-valve Edelbrock carburetor and then an Edelbrock air cleaner. I suspect the small air cleaner may be because this car still has the 2-barrel intake on it, and it's a 4-barrel carburetor, so there's a plate in there, I think, as an adapter. So I suspect that they might have run into clearance issues, which required such a small air cleaner, but it works just as good. They did replace the distributor on the car, as you can tell, and basically the car does run pretty good. There are some leaking and issues that we have to resolve, and I'll get into that more in the next video when I talk about what we're planning to do with it. Something to note here on the front is the power steering pump. So this, we believe, is both a factory power steering and air conditioned car, and I'll show you the unit inside of the car. Now the air conditioner is currently removed, and that's again something I'll get more in depth into when we do a full, what plans are being made for the car. But that is definitely interesting because not many cars had factory AC. Also, the radiator has been swapped out for a much nicer aluminum model. The car runs pretty cold, which is nice because, some of these older cars can have overheating issues. And you'll notice here that, the suspension component, at least the top of that, looks pretty clean and new. So someone before us, probably at least 2 owners ago, ended up replacing a lot of front end suspension components, which is really nice because the car handles and drives pretty good. And we actually have some of the old components, and let me tell you, it was time for them to be replaced. So honestly, not much else of note in the engine bay. It's pretty clean and definitely a good start for our project. Okay, so we're finishing up with the interior of the car. So here we have the gauge cluster and everything. In pretty good shape, all things considered. We do believe that it's been redone to an extent because it's in pretty good shape. It's definitely starting to show its age, but I doubt that it would be this clean if it was actually original from 1966. Something interesting we learned about the car is the temperature gauge on the dash doesn't, but someone went and added a secondary one here that does work. Now, we're not quite sure why you wouldn't have just fixed this one, but having one is better than none. So moving over, someone installed an aftermarket radio, which is pretty nice. We don't actually think it's hooked up because in my effort to try and find some stations, we only got one to come through, and that makes me believe that that antenna over there isn't really hooked up right, especially with it having some weird Falcon plate on it. So definitely something we're going to look at in the future. This is an automatic car with the Cruise-O-Matic. Coming down here, you have the only part of the factory AC that's still actually in the car. Pretty cool to see this unit because it's a very desirable option and it can be quite expensive to replace. So that's definitely something we're going to talk about in the future, is setting this up, but this is really nice to have this already in the car. Looking all around the interior, you can see that everything is a crank handle. You want to put your window up or down, it's a crank handle. Want to lower the back window over there? It's a crank handle. You want to open those little things, you undo the thing and you push it out manually. No, there is power nothing in this car, and honestly, it's kind of cool because it's less to break, it's easier to fix, and it kind of reminds you of, how cars used to be. Showing off the steering wheel, and as you can see, it's a pretty good sized steering wheel like they were at the time, and something of interest is how small the center hub is, and the reason that is because there's no airbag. There's no passenger airbag, there's no driver airbag, there's no side airbag, there's no airbags in general, but what you do have is a turn signal here, right? Now, unlike a modern car where you have 10 different settings and all that, and it does 8 different things and fancy things, it is literally toggle down, toggle up, that's your turn signal, and that's pretty much it. Showing some of the controls on the dashboard here. So for your lights, it's merely just a pull knob. So all you would do is pull this out, and that would switch on your lights, right? And then you have wipers, you have a thing for a lighter, all right? And then you just have some simple controls for the heater. So overall, really cool, really simple, but honestly has everything you would need, to turn this into a daily driver. Again, once you get the AC fixed. So overall, the interior of this car is in pretty good shape. It's definitely going to have a few more years left in it. There's a couple small tears and stuff in the vinyl that will probably be addressed in the future, but overall, it's in pretty nice shape. All right, so that's a walk around of my 1966 Ford Mustang. I'm gonna do videos in the future. In fact, I hope to do a video really soon, talking about what we're gonna change about the car and what we're gonna do to upgrade the car. Talk more about some of the issues and all that. But if you want to see more content like this, likes, subs, shares, all that good stuff, I really appreciate it. Really helps the channel grow. And put down below what information you want to see, what videos you want to see, and see y'all later.